7 of us competing to be the next Iron Chef, which in the chef world is probably the greatest title that you can achieve per se. And so she said, hey, we're filming this new show with Iron Chef. Are you interested? And said, absolutely. And the rest was history from there.
Welcome back to the I Am Redemption podcast. Today, I normally say we have a very special guest, but today we have a special treat for you. We have award-winning chef Jason Dady. We are sitting in downtown San Antonio, his beautiful restaurant Range. This is absolutely gorgeous. Jason, thank you for taking the time and sit down with us today. Really,
absolutely. Thanks, and welcome to San Antonio.
Dude, this is beautiful. Great setup you got here. This is amazing. So, dude, I have so many questions for you. Where did your journey begin? Like, how did you even get into, you own multiple restaurants, catering, you're an award-winning chef. Like, how did this all start for you?
I think it started my first job out of high school. I was a server at a restaurant and just kind of had an immediate affinity for it. Just loved the vibe. And, but you don't think of it when you're 16 or 17 years old that that's your career. But I just knew that I really enjoyed it. And I'd always loved to be around cooking, but again, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, and went to Texas Tech University and ended up in the restaurant hotel program after kind of, trying to be in marketing and PR and just not having a lot of passion for it. Went and spoke to a counselor that said, hey, we have a restaurant program, and I was like, oh, that's a thing, that's a career, and kind of the rest is history. I decided about a year outside of graduating from Texas Tech that I wanted to go to culinary school afterwards. Packed up and moved to San Francisco for 3 years after I got my degree, and then the rest is history. So, I was home ec student of the year when I was in high school, but didn't put those, pieces of the puzzle together. And, both my grandmothers were amazing cooks, and kind of, my mom's side of the family, big family, and, just kind of grew up in kitchens and hospitality. My grandparents owned a bar for 50 years. It just was retired about a year ago. So I kind of grew up being around this business without knowing until I was doing it myself that it was kind of programmed that way in a way.
Right. The more my wife's a fan of yours. She definitely knows you and seen some of your stuff.
Yeah.
And so as she watches a lot of the shows and stuff like that, I've picked up on some more. And the one thing that fascinates me about just the chef population in general is the passion.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone I've come across or see, they have a passion. They found a career field where it's passion driven. And
absolutely,
passion is what changed my life. I was lack of passion for a long time, got me in a lot of trouble and everything. But as soon as I'd rediscovered passion in my life, completely changed it. Where did the inspiration come from, or when did you discover that it was a passion for you?
I think when I went to San Francisco, and I'd always been quote unquote front of house.
Yep.
Started as a server. When I was in college, I was a assistant manager for a Joe's Crab Shack, managing a team of 65 people. I was 20 years old, but again, it was great experience, but I don't know that I had the passion yet. When I went to San Francisco and I got my first job in the kitchen is when it became just an undeniable passion. And I think it stemmed from the competitive nature of sports.
Mm-hmm.
Of, being, playing sports all through high school, having the opportunity to go play basketball in college and being real burned out and not wanting to do it after that. It just relit this fire in me. It was super competitive. I'm going to be a better cook than you. I'm going to make it taste better than you. I'm going to be faster than you. I'm going to be cleaner than you. First one in, last one out. And so for me, that just resonated so significantly from a competitive nature. And I don't know if everybody looks at it that way, but for me, when I stepped foot in a kitchen, and I still am that way to this day with my line cooks, I love to push them and tell them that I'm faster than them and that my steak looks better than them because it's fun, and at this point in my career. But
you got to talk a little shit.
Always got to talk a little smack, for sure. So, I think that's probably where the passion came from. And then the reality of it is it's a passion for hospitality. It's a passion for, somebody trusting you with their hard-earned money to come in and have a great experience with high expectations, and you deliver. And without passion, you're never going to get there. This is a business can beat people down, and it does beat people down a lot. And my career's changed, right? I mean, am I the chef today that I was 25 years ago when I got started in San Antonio? Absolutely not. But I think I'm probably more relaxed and probably a happier person, and have kind of found a little bit more balance in my life.
Right. So so you're a basketball player?
Played basketball, football, baseball, but mostly basketball was my main sport. Yeah.
Oh, I know you're a hooper. Now we're talking the same language. Where did you play at?
I grew up in Dallas. I played at Coppell High School.
Okay. Good stuff. That's awesome. I didn't expect that at all, that you were able to take the competitiveness from sports and transition that into the kitchen. Because that's exactly how I am. I'm competitive in everything to a fault.
Right.
Where does so on TV, I don't know if I would imagine it's a real thing, but like on TV you see a lot of like the strictness, the yelling, all that. It's like a boot camp back there. It's run like, military or something like that. Where does that come from?
Well, I think like for me, I look at myself as a bridge of the old school world and the new school world of cooking. In the old school world, it was a little crazier. It was a little more intense. It was more in your face. And it wasn't always right, but it wasn't always wrong either.
Right.
And in today's world, it's a very different situation. There's zero tolerance for that behavior or those actions in today's world. The younger cooks, they don't connect to that. It doesn't inspire them.
Gotcha.
And I think it's just a generational thing. I think it's just, as anything in life, if you see, baby boomers now and the way that they were raised from their parents and maybe the lack of love and the lack of affection, and so they became more affectionate parents, and now, it's I kind of make a correlation there that, cooks in today's world, they're inspired differently. They grew up with YouTube videos and Google at their hands. For me, I was kind of the last of like reading cookbooks and reading magazines and learning it from that perspective, and having chefs tell me every day that my food looked like shit and that's not good enough and throw it away and start over. Right. They didn't care that you had just prepped it for 2 hours. It was like, that's not acceptable trashing. If you try to do that in today's world, those cooks would instantaneously. They're like, I'm not putting up with this, and which is fine. Like I said, there are some things that needed to be fixed. But as far as the sensationalization of on television, and TV is TV, right? I mean, there's obviously components of that. From the shows that I've done, the cooking competitions, the cooking is very real. Everything else around it might be slightly, enhanced or fabricated, but the cooking part is real.
What is that like on those shows? Because it is very competitive, and you're under time and everything like that. What's that like when you're in the thick of it? Yeah,
it goes back to like the sports analogy, I mean, that's just how I took it. It's like you go in there with the mission of having a game plan, and can you execute under pressure? For me, my rule of thumb was always the first dish that I think of is what I'm sticking with.
Okay.
Go with your gut instinct, and go fast and efficient. And if you do that and you pay attention to the timing of it, I was never, honestly, I never really came up to the gate of timing. But I think that just comes back to that competitive nature. I was like, I was never going to be the one that was, that missed a component on their dish because they forgot about it. Right. And when you film a show, then when you watch a show, you have a very different perspective, because you can see chefs second guessing themselves in the middle of it, and then they lose their focus, and then by losing their focus, they forget 2 ingredients, and then it's time to plate, and they, the chaos, they let the chaos win. Whereas I always approached it like, just, the tortoise always wins, man. Keep it calm, cool, and collected, and everything will finish up at the end just right.
It's almost like you're watching film. Right. Like when you go back and watch everything, like that is competitive right there. That's cool. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree completely. And I was kind of nerdy that way when I did these shows. I would like have kind of a game plan, but every day I would wake up and I would put down the notes of dishes that you don't ever know what ingredients you're going to have as far as the secret ingredient, but what's in the kitchen, like you. If that makes sense, right? It's like you walk through and you can see the different ingredients on the wall. For me, that's what I'm paying attention to. It's like I'm trying to get an advantage over my opponent of being like, I know
you already have a mental picture.
Gotcha. I'm not in there just being like, oh, jolly, this is some fun. I'm like, I'm here to win. Okay, there's that. So that when it's time to go, I know exactly where that piece of equipment is. I know where that seasoning might be, so that when it's go time, you're not doing the floundering thing that you see a lot of times on television.
Right. So the first time you just Did you apply? You get a random phone call to come on the show? Like, how does that happen?
I was supposed to be on Top Chef season 9, which was filmed here in San Antonio.
Okay.
And got cut the night before filming started. And they told me they already had their Texas story. That was kind of the reasoning, that they already had enough Texas chefs, and so, which was super disappointing.
Yeah.
But the silver lining is that one of the producers that I had met on that show at the time, she was kind of an assistant producer. She was casting for the Iron Chef Gauntlet show, which was kind of the big show. I mean, it was, 7 of us competing to be the next Iron Chef, which in the chef world is probably the greatest title that you can achieve, per se. And so she said, "Hey, we're filming this new show with Iron Chef. Are you interested?" And said, "Absolutely." And the rest was history from there.
Really?
Yeah.
How excited are you? Like, so where did you end up going? Did you go out west to film?
Yeah, we filmed in LA for about 2 weeks. Yeah, it was awesome, and it was the best experience. I mean, there was several of the chefs I already knew and were friends with. So, and we kind of like, you just kind of have a feeling. I knew the brevity of the show that we were filming, being Iron Chef, so I had an idea of what quality of level of chefs that were going to be there, and I was already texting one of my friends. I'm like, "Are you heading to LA?" And she was like, "Yeah." I said, "All right, I'll see you there." So, yeah, but what a great experience. Met some amazing people. The cooking is the easy part. That's what I always say. If all you got to get up every day and cook, that's kind of the easiest part of my everyday job. It's kind of running the restaurant and managing the people that can be difficult and challenging and stressful at times. But cooking is the easy part.
There you go. What, when you originally went out to San Francisco, was that like, are you taking a leap of faith? Like, I need to go somewhere and cut my teeth for a while? Like, that's where I want to go learn at?
Absolutely. I mean, I had, my wife and I had went to visit one time for 2 days just to go check out the school, and came back, and I mean, we graduated on a Saturday and we were in a U-Haul on Monday.
Really?
And we got an apartment, sight unseen, all off the internet. Like, we literally didn't know where we were moving. We just hoped it was going to work out. She ended up with a great job in the .com world, and I was going to culinary school and working in kitchens in San Francisco. So, but it was just a total leap of faith, and really mostly because we wanted to be on the West Coast, and we loved San Francisco, and just kind of were like, "Hey, let's see where this takes us."
Right. How many years you spent?
Just under 3. Yeah.
Okay.
And my wife was in the .com, and I was a cook. So, I mean, during the original .com bus, it was like, we better get back to Texas because we don't want to be out here living on a line cook's salary. Even though I had a college degree and I was there to kind of start from scratch, if that makes sense. I wanted to learn every ounce of the restaurant industry, knowing that eventually I would try to open my own.
So you knew then that was the goal?
I knew all along that I wanted to open my own restaurant. It's just the path to get there was different,
Right.
And the reality of it is, and I think it's for any career and any job, and something I talked to my, I have a daughter that's a freshman right now, a sophomore at Texas Tech. It's like your first job can dictate so much of your life that you have no idea. Like, it's like, and in the cooking world, it is so true, is that, maybe you go to culinary school and your first job is with Chef XYZ and they're cooking this type of food, and that's where you fall in the line. Or maybe you go work for a chain restaurant and you end up in the chain restaurant world. And so it's so important to that first job dictates everything. And so I was a unique culinary student. I had a 4-year degree. I had managed a Joe's Crab Shack of 65 people. So I wasn't like a typical line cook, if that makes sense. But my first real job was with a really great group of guys and chefs, and it shaped me for who I am to this day, and so I have a lot of very thankful for those guys of being good guys and doing it the right way and kind of shaping my career, not knowing that that's the way my career was going to go.
Right.
You just never know. I mean, I know a lot of chefs that went and worked for guys that were tyrants and, burned out and hated it, and 3 years later, they weren't even cooking anymore, So, you just never know what you're going to get. So it's important to find somebody that you trust is going to lead you in the right direction.
Right. You brought up your wife, your daughter. Everything I read and saw about you, family values is big to you. In what way do you show that, practice that? Like, why is that? I mean, obviously, I know the why because it's family.
Yeah. I would say that it's probably the thing I'm most proud of is being a family man, in a sense that, coming from a quote unquote divorced family and through middle school, I just think I led my whole life thinking like, well, I don't want to do that to my children, right? Even though everything in my life was the best thing that ever happened to me, of us moving away and getting new opportunities and such. But for me, in this industry, it's so difficult to find balance. It's practically impossible. In particular because you need to be here through lunch service, but that's okay because your kids are at school. But at night, you can't, I worked every day for 15 years, 6 days a week from 9 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. But once I just had made a pact to myself that once my kids got to the age to where they needed me more, that's far more important. And that's hard because it changes everything about your business model. It changes everything about the way that your staff looks at you, or, because they're used to you being there at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then you're gone at 6 o'clock. But I just always go back to the analogy is like, is Jimmy at table 23 going to care about me in 20 years? Or is it my kids that are like, hey, my dad was there for me, right? And so you have to make these very difficult judgment calls within this industry. And a lot of it is seeing chefs throughout the years that really struggled with, maybe family life or relationships with their kids. And I just kind of made a pact to myself. I was like, that's not going to be who I am or what I do.
Right.
I can still give my full effort. I can still train and motivate and inspire, but you don't need me here on a Tuesday night in January, right? Like I'm going to go home and be dad and cook dinner and help with homework and go to basketball practice. And so those were things that are all just very important to me. Now, where did that come from? I think just growing up in kind of a large family in Nebraska. My mom had 12 brothers and sisters, huge family aspect. My dad's, had 4 brothers and sisters. So I just grew up around big families. And, I'm still, some of my best friends in my life are my cousins, so, which I think is so cool. And so it just, for me, always was about instilling with my kids balance, work hard, play hard.
Right.
And that's how we've tried to raise them. And it's like, I do both. I still work very, very hard, but I have no problem playing hard too and enjoying the fruits of the labor.
Right. That's good. And I mean, it's refreshing to hear that. I feel like in today's society, there's been a loss of that, of the importance of family and home and everything. And so to see somebody at your level of what you do and that still be so important and that be in your messaging to the public, like that's a brave and a beautiful thing because you don't say it much.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not like I'm trying, I get a lot like, oh, you're such a celebrity chef, which to me is the most laughable thing, right? Like, it's like, I don't look at myself that way. And there are random times where you'll be at the grocery store and with my kids and somebody will be like, oh, hey, Chef Dady, but like, to me, that's not a celebrity. That's somebody that they like our restaurants and they want to say hi and whatever. But it is very interesting because trying to like keep your kids separated from that.
Yeah.
I don't ever bring my kids to the restaurants, ever. Never did when they were growing up. I just didn't want them to have a sense of entitlement or ownership in a way that I didn't want them, for everybody that's walking by in the restaurant, to be like, oh, chef, hey, chef. I just felt that was not a good vibe for them. I wanted them to be like, I'm your dad. I work really hard. I don't want you to think what I do is easy. Because it's very hard and it's very difficult. And if my kids were to say, hey, Dad, I want to follow in your footsteps, I think I can do this, I'd be all for it. But I certainly don't encourage and I don't push them in that direction. I want them to find their own path, their own passion, and their own path through life, which is incredibly important to me.
Wow. Dude, that's so refreshing, man. That's beautiful. What did you say your daughter's at Texas Tech?
I have a sophomore at Texas Tech studying petroleum engineering.
Okay.
So did not get that from me. She definitely got that from her mother. And then Tessa, my middle, is a junior in high school, and then I have an 8th grade boy.
Right. Okay. So they say behind every great man is a great woman. I've seen it. Your wife's involved in the business somehow. Is she the one? You the talent, and she's the one that runs everything. Or?
She calls me the creative, and
okay.
She says, "You're the creative. I'm the engine." So I'm in business with my brother and my wife.
Okay.
All 25 years of basically being entrepreneurs in San Antonio. My wife's father helped get us started to get a small business loan when my wife and I were 24. My brother was 22. And we opened our first restaurant here in 2001. And so, but yeah, Crystal and I have been married 27 years. So we got married when we were 20. Didn't know any better. Still my best friend. It's unique working with your brother and your wife, but we've done a very, very good job of understanding how to have the right conversations at the right time. No, listen, it was certainly when we were young, it was probably rockier, but now it's a well-oiled machine. Crystal handles all marketing, PR, financial, like bookkeeping side of it. And then I'm the creative, as she would say. My brother is more in the operation, so his job is kind of to handle and oversee the restaurants on an everyday business, on an everyday. If there's something broken, if there's something that needs to be fixed, or we've got to go figure this out, that's kind of where he goes. So it's a nice three-headed machine that works very well for us.
Good.
And no outside investors, so which is very unique. I think that's something we're super proud of, is that we don't have anybody else telling us what to do or what we're doing wrong, or I don't like this plate, I want to change. It's like, and I see a lot of chefs that struggle with that. That they're the owner of the restaurant, but somebody else is kind of the puppeteer, if you will.
Right. Yeah, I hear about that a lot, investors and stuff like that. So to get to where you're at, to be a business owner, that you've had to have been through adversity and all that. And so throughout your entire journey, do you have like what time in your life or one moment where you would classify kind of as your rock bottom?
For sure. So we had opened the Lodge Restaurant of Castle Hills, which was our first restaurant, October 16th, 2001. 5 years later, ballparking that, is 2006. So 5 years later, we opened Bin 555, which was kind of a Spanish-inspired small plates wine bar, super cool place. I was probably 29 at the time, living the high life, thinking I'm hot shit. 2 successful restaurants, and my brother at the time was interested in moving back to Dallas, or at least discussions of moving back to Dallas. So we started to look at locations there, and ended up taking over the restaurant as, oddly enough, my first job was the same location.
Really?
And we converted.
It was the Crab Shack?
No, this was called CJ's Clubhouse Grill.
Okay.
And so we bought it from the owners and turned it into a Bin 555. This was like 2007, housing crisis of 2008. We were toast. I mean, we signed a bad deal, overpaid for the restaurant. Housing crisis comes. We didn't do enough market research to realize that people in that particular area, that particular town, didn't really care about a wine bar and small plates. It was super family driven, and we were dead in the water. And we didn't pull the plug early enough. You keep trying to fix it, and you keep trying to make it right, and you just keep pumping more money into it, and the restaurant ended up really just bottom out and out of business. And that was, without a shadow of a doubt, like just absolute rock bottom. I had zero inspiration. I had zero passion. I had no interest in the restaurant industry, because not only is it just gutting to lose and to lose at that level, but it's a financial strain. I mean, you're talking about, we had worked 6 years to lose everything and kind of start over. But we didn't act like, we weren't crybabies about it. We came back here, we still had our 2 restaurants here, and just kind of put our heads down and just grinded it out. And then, we had an opportunity to open Trey Trattoria. Immediately after that, we opened Two Brothers Barbecue in 2000 and really both in 2008. So it was like, one failure led to 2 successes, and those 2 restaurants are still our flagships today, how many years later, 13, 14 years later. So, but there was no doubt that was definitely the roughest, hardest time that I've ever had.
Like from my experience, my greatest life lessons come from moments like those, my rock bottom moments where I wasn't doing well, and like I'm able to kind of look back and how did I pull myself out of it, and what do I need to do differently and all that. Do you have, like, obviously you had to learn a lot of lessons from that, but do you have one that sticks out that is like the most important lesson you learned?
Definitely just finances in general of, from the chef's perspective of when you have the entire bounty of whatever you want to buy at your disposal, right? Wild mushrooms that are $40, $50 a pound, and then you realize, well, I don't need the $40 or $50 a pound mushrooms. I can probably get more or less the same dish with the $25 a pound mushrooms, or something as silly as it sounds, as like kitchen towels was like my big thing, right? So when you go to a restaurant, these linens are on every table, call it 37 cents every linen, okay? And then somebody spills a drink, and the servers go grab 5 of these and wipe it up, right? So now it's $1.50 to clean up that spill, right? What it did is it made me look at every single thing in every single restaurant as a dollar bill, almost like it's like transposed onto it, right? Like when I look at this, I see a dollar bill. I don't see a napkin.
Gotcha.
And so by starting to look at things like that, it made us better entrepreneurs to actually to care about profit and loss, to not just be like, think that because we're the coolest chefs and we're doing the coolest things. I lost I didn't lose it, but it made me less care about how cool things were and how progressive we were. It made me focus on, hey, we're here to make a profit. And for some reason in the chef world, for a long, long time, that was like frowned upon. Like it was like you're like, what do you mean? Like you're like, you only cared about being so particular and using the absolute best ingredients and all that. That's great. Well, it doesn't mean shit if at the end of the month you lost $10,000.
Right.
And I think that's what's made us good restaurateurs, but it's also what's made us very good mentors of taking that philosophy and instilling it into our chefs, so that when they leave and we want to be a springboard for them, and they go to maybe open their own restaurant, which we've got a great family tree of chefs that have left our company that are super successful. I like to think that they're super successful because even though at the time they thought I was crazy, or they thought I was, out of my mind, or I was being greedy or whatever it wasn't. I was trying to instill to them is like, listen, every dollar counts, every penny counts in the restaurant, because, you hear the stories of, a restaurant profit margin is 4 to 5%. And, in your mind, you're like, that's impossible. How could that be possible? My steak was $63, right? Like, well, that $63 steak probably cost $36 just in raw costs, not to mention the labor, and then you have trim, and they forgot to take the trim and make it into a burger so that you get your food costs back. So for us, it's really about understanding and being comfortable talking to our teams about profit and loss, because profit and loss is the difference of being at the table or not having the restaurant per se.
Right. As you're saying that, my stepfather decided, he worked 30 years in the steel mills up in Pennsylvania, and he had this grand plan that when he retired, he was just going to buy like a little hole-in-the-wall sports bar and just sit at the end of the bar and talk shit all day.
Right.
Well, then my mom got involved and said, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So they ended up with a restaurant and a bar and everything, and this is like right before COVID, and they flourished through COVID. They were kind of the best food in town, but it was funny to watch my stepfather, who this was going to be his retirement
right.
and relaxation.
Never was charter.
Anything but.
Yep.
I grew up working in restaurants. I was always front of the house too. Always knew it was smart to make friends with the guys in the back of the house though.
Yeah.
And so I had my own experiences. My wife, she bartended and worked in restaurants for years. So it's cool to hear it come from you and like see from an outside perspective all that.
Well, the famous saying is, how do you make $2 million in the restaurant industry? Is you start with 3.
I never heard that. That's good.
And it's very true.
Right.
It's what I try to stress is like, you cannot believe how easy it is to lose $15,000 to $20,000 in a month.
Right.
It like that. Not paying attention to labor, not paying attention to food, as far as, over ordering or money on the shelves, or, you come and see a wine rack that with, $50,000 worth of wine on there, and you have a slow month, and it's, and your bartender ordered an extra 2 cases that probably is not going to sell for another 6 weeks, so it's all that kind of, those are the important things to learn and understand about running a successful business.
So many moving pieces. Every
day.
That's wild. Where, I know you had said, I think your grandma's earlier, but where do you draw your inspiration from as far as the cooking goes? Because I'm sure you guys think the same way, but y'all are artists too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just food on a plate. Like,
I think every restaurant that we've opened, it's happened organically and without any preconceived ideas. We've never sat down and said, you know what we're gonna do today? We're gonna go open an Italian restaurant. You know, we might get a phone call that says, hey, we've got this location. Are you interested? And then we go see the restaurant, and I always know I'm in trouble when I walk into a location and I can visualize it. Like, it's kind of like, I'm like, okay, I got it. I know what this restaurant is. And a lot of the inspiration of the food comes from things that maybe, again, my career's changed in the last couple of years as far as what we have and what we do now. But it would be like, hey, you know, there's no real great pasta programs. You know, there's a restaurant that has a ravioli, or there's a restaurant that has, you know, a great rigatoni dish, but we didn't feel when we opened Trey that there was a restaurant that had a bona fide pasta program that really focused on handmade, house-made pasta every single day. Mm-hmm. And then in particular, it went even farther. It was like, I didn't feel like there was a great linguine and clams in San Antonio. So Trey's entire inspiration was based off of linguine and clams.
Really?
That was it. I wanted a place that had the best linguine and clams because that's what I was craving, and that's what I want. And then you open it up, and you don't ever eat linguine and clams because you see it and smell it every day, and you're like, why did I open a restaurant? It's like I ruined my own favorite meals, right? And so, and I think every restaurant's been kind of that way. Shuck Shack, which was one of my favorite restaurants we've ever had, is we wanted a great lobster roll that was available every single day. That did not exist 7 years ago in San Antonio. Sure, there's places now that have it on a consistent basis, but as crazy as it sounds, 7 years ago, there wasn't a place where you could get a lobster roll every single day at an affordable price, using fresh Maine lobster, bringing them live, breaking them down, cleaning them, and for us, that was kind of the inspiration, was to find something that we were craving or a niche that we felt we could fill, and then take it from there.
Gotcha. That's good. Chef-wise, do you have inspirations there? Like, coming up, did you have a chef that you kind of wanted to, is it like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, again, being bridging the gap between old school world and the new school world of chefs, you know, younger chefs in today's world, they're going to be looking at TikTok chefs, Food Network chefs. That's kind of their...
Is there TikTok chefs now?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Crazy. And then, and by the way, you can learn a lot from these TikTok chefs, believe it or not. It's actually, and I'm not on TikTok, but I have kids, so they will show me.
If that was the case, my wife would be the smartest person in the world.
And but Daniel DeLue from New York City was always one that I really kind of aspired to be like. He's got a big over the top personality, but he's so genuinely kind and giving, and he's also kind of half restaurateur, half chef. So that was kind of always for me kind of my inspiration was Chef Daniel DeLue.
Okay, I like that. Did you see that movie, The Menu?
I did, actually.
What did you think?
I saw it on an airplane.
Okay.
Not too long ago, so way after it had originally came out, and I laughed hysterically the whole time. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. It was almost like a dark comedy to me, like, in a way. There are certainly components of it that I could appreciate coming from the fine dining world, and that over the top kind of mentality of how silly chefs can be sometimes, of how, you know, there are certain things that you see, you know, the one scene where the chef comes and whispers in his ear basically and was like, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen. I can't believe you would even consider yourself a chef. You should quit now." Like, da-da-da-da-da. Like, that does exist. Like, in these Michelin 3-star restaurants, this mentality of like, you are the worst piece of trash. How dare you even give me a parsley leaf that's not perfectly round or whatever, you know? Like, it's, but it was funny. You know, it was good.
It was good. It was dark too. It wasn't something I was expecting. It was pretty good. And then that one part where it's like, if I'm remembering it correctly, someone just like dies and they just like keep going on. Like,
yes,
it was part of the show or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, it's a perfect metaphor for just how silly it is to the lengths people will go to feel like they're getting to go to the coolest place.
Right.
I mean, there was I always remember there was a guy in England that basically started a fake restaurant and fake reviews, and like on Yelp or TripAdvisor or one of those type of sites, it ended up becoming the #1 rated restaurant on the site, and it didn't even exist.
Really?
It's a total hoax, and it took months for anybody to figure out that it was fake.
Really?
And it's like that's the crazy part of the food reviewing world. This guy literally made a restaurant, became #1, didn't even exist, and people were trying to get into it. He was getting calls and messages every day of people leaving reservations and requests, and all he did was type up fake reviews. Oh my God, best restaurant! I can't believe I finally got in. So the more he did that, the more people wanted to go to it.
Right.
Although there was nowhere to go.
In that same vein, I just saw, I don't know if it was a show or a video or a clip or whatever, but they had a bunch of people come in that were fashion and shoe experts, and all the shoes that they had were like Payless shoes.
Right.
And all the people were like, oh, these are so amazing, so finely done. I'd pay $500 for these, and they were like $19.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious.
It's a crazy world.
It is, very much. So when I was leaving this morning, my wife was very excited for this episode and all that, and so I said, all right, what do you want me to ask you? Her big question she wants to know, and I don't know why, it makes no sense to me, but she wants to know, have you ever cried in the walk-in?
I have never cried in the walk.
Never. Sorry, babe.
I would say I have probably unintentionally made people go cry in the walk-in. But I don't know that I have ever personally cried in the walk.
Okay. Yeah. And then I don't know if she wanted to know what was the craziest thing you've ever seen in the restaurant or the craziest thing you've ever seen in the walk-in. It was one of those two.
The craziest thing I've ever seen in a restaurant, I think it's always customer-based, people that are fighting or arguing. Or I actually had a guy one night that was a little intoxicated, and he was being very rude to one of our servers.
Okay.
And I just don't tolerate like that type of abuse towards our staff. And had some firm, stern words with him that he needed to leave, and it didn't go over well, as you can imagine. And basically, cursing at each other, telling him to get out. And he leaves, and the staff was like, "Oh, chef, thank you so much." And you think it's all over. And no exaggeration, the next morning, I'm at the gym, and he gets on the treadmill right next to me, the same guy.
Nuh-uh.
And we both just start laughing our asses off. And ended up kind of becoming friendly. Yeah. Not like we hung out outside of that, but like we thought, we both got the irony of the situation, but that's got to be one of the craziest things.
That is wild. That's wild. That's astronomical chances right there. It's almost like when you boyhood fight with somebody and you end up being buddies with them.
Right, absolutely. It was wild.
That's crazy. No crazy stories about the walk-in?
No, honestly, that is a little bit to me, other than somebody that, might, have a bucket of chicken stock or something and they drop it and then it takes them an hour to clean it up kind of situation. But I've never seen anything that crazy or wild in the walk-ins. They're cold. You don't want to be in there, man.
Right. Right. I don't know what she's going for with those questions. I don't know what she was up to.
Well, I have it. I didn't wear it today, but somebody gave me a shirt. It's funny that she's asking that because somebody gave me a T-shirt for Christmas this year, and it literally says, go cry in the walk-in or something.
Really?
Yeah, it says something like that effect. So I don't wear it at work because I don't want anybody to go actually cry in the walk-in, but I'll wear it around the house.
Right. Yeah, anytime I was hiding in the walk-in back then, I wasn't doing well, so I was doing something probably illegal in there. I can remember my last job in a restaurant. I was in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I worked at a place called Billie Jean's Grasshopper Farm. It was a nice restaurant, nice bar, and I was having a rough day, and I had gotten 12 iced teas, and a new server came through the wrong door of the kitchen. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to be, obviously going the other way. And so I wore all 12, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. And I just left for the day, and that was that. I haven't worked in a restaurant since, but it was definitely an experience. So we know what life's like for you in the restaurant and business and all that. When you go unwind, and you said you like to play hard, what do you do? What's that look like?
I would say
the gym, sports?
No, my favorite thing is to go camping. I love to just disconnect. I love to go to New Mexico and do some fly fishing or camping outside. I love camping outside, kind of roughing it. That's probably like the thing that relaxes me the most. I love to go out to north of Del Rio here and go to the Devil's River here and stargaze and hang out. But I love going to, unfortunately, I have to admit I'm a huge Cowboys fan, and it's been a rough couple days. But
I'm a Steelers fan.
So
same boat.
I love to go up to the Cowboy games and tailgate and kind of party up there. I love to travel, whether that's for art and history and go to Mexico City and just have street tacos and go to museums. But I also love, to go to Napa and go see the wine country. And I worked up there for about a year before we moved back. And so, I still have a lot of friends there. I think travel is incredibly important, especially from a chef's perspective, so that you get a new perspective. Right. So those are some of the things I like to do to chill out, I guess.
The camping thing, I totally get. When I had running, it was a big part of my story, a big part of me getting sober, a big part of my mental health and all that. And I got into running, then I got into trail running. And there was something so therapeutic about getting outside and being away from the phones and the people and everything like that. And so that is like, and now especially as I get older, now all of a sudden I'm watching Yellowstone and picturing myself way out there in the country in a cabin. And
there's nothing like that dream. That's my, hopefully that's my end goal. I mean, I love just a campfire, I mean, that to me is the most therapeutic things, to be outside somewhere and clear night of stars and a campfire. That's me at my happiest, honestly.
What is your family's favorite dish for you to cook at home?
It changes. They all have kind of their own different favorites. So last week my Tessa, she texted me at like 9 a.m. and she said, I want steamed buns and Korean short ribs tonight. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll see if I can make that happen. My son's probably like, he's, 8th grade, growing, trash can eater. Will just eat anything you put in front of him. His big thing right now is he loves Freebirds, like burritos. Like he loves like the big burrito type of deal. But he normally would ask me to cook steaks. My oldest daughter is very particular about food and wants me to cook everything when she's back home to visit. So could be Thai food, could be Chinese food, could be sushi. She's just like,
so she comes home to get dad's cooking.
She was home for Christmas break for 2 weeks, and so it's like she like has it. She's like, here's the 8 meals you're cooking before I go back. Here they are, and so she knows exactly what she wants.
That's awesome. I do. My stepmother, she's just like down home cooking and cooking from scratch and everything. And my grandmother on that side is an amazing cook. And so when I go up there, I have my signature things like, you think I can get this one here, one here? And she always does it for me.
Absolutely. That's the best.
That's great. So if you would, we've heard your story and everything. Like, I want to throw out a couple fun questions and just kind of help give me the first thing that comes to mind, or, in comparison or something like that. You down?
Yep.
All right. First thing that comes to mind. Dallas Cowboys.
Losers.
Ooh. Are you happy McCarthy staying? It looks like?
I guess so. I don't hate it.
Is that
I'm pretty bitter right now. I'm very bitter right now about the Dallas Cowboys. I don't mind Dak. I don't mind McCarthy. I don't know what happened. This was just an unacceptable outcome.
Right. That's how most of Dallas feels, and Pittsburgh's feeling the same way. You said you go to the gym, so fitness.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is just elliptical. Like I can get lost on an elliptical machine and kind of zone out and do hour and a half of just kind of sweating it out and focusing on something else.
Yeah. And it's good, especially when you can do that, when you can just kind of like cardio was always like my meditation. I was never good at just sitting and being still, but I could go run and just zone out and work through my problems and do all that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's good. Favorite meal?
Thanksgiving.
Cool. All right. So
by 1,000 miles, not even close.
So like a full Thanksgiving meal, that would be your last meal?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. My grandmother's Thanksgiving meal would 100% be my last meal.
That's a very good answer. I don't know why that would have never dawned on me. Dark meat or light meat?
Mixable.
Okay, me too. Gravy, no gravy?
Lots of gravy.
Got it.
Lots of gravy.
All right. United States of America.
Freedom.
San Antonio.
Growing.
There was somebody was listening to this, and there was somebody, and they hear your story, they're inspired, they want to follow in your footsteps. What would be your advice to them?
Be willing to take a lot of sacrifices and work extraordinarily hard.
Love that. God. You don't have to answer that if you don't want it.
It doesn't bother me. I would say personal.
Personal. Good answer. It's a good one. What are your other sports teams?
Well, obviously, I love the Spurs. We're opening a restaurant in collaboration with them in April.
Okay.
At their new facility. I like the Chicago Blackhawks. I grew up in northern Indiana as a kid for a little bit, so I do like myself a little bit of hockey every once in a while. Who else do I like? I would say those are baseball. Grew up as a Cubs fan for sure as a kid. I know I don't like the Astros. Other than that, I don't know that I have a favorite baseball team.
Gotcha. So you were a basketball player growing up. Who were your guys? Did you have a team? Were you always a Spurs fan? Or
No, I mean I grew up in Dallas, so for me it was like Jimmy Jackson and Jason Kidd and
Jamal Mashburn
and Roy Tarpley and so I would say that's probably who my inspiration as a young basketball fan.
Right.
Alonzo Mourning and loved Georgetown, like back when Georgetown was super cool. Yeah.
So I'm from up near Pittsburgh. We never had a basketball team, and I'm anti-Cleveland everything, so I couldn't root for them. So I always liked players. So the Hornets were kind of like my squad.
Larry Johnson?
Larry Johnson was my guy.
Yep.
And then and I loved Jason Williams. I would end up rooting for different players on different teams.
Absolutely.
A little melting pot of
What
people,
it was.
for sure. Man, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down, for us inviting into your place. This was absolutely amazing.
Anytime.
Thank you. The way I don't want to put you on the spot, but the way we usually wrap up the podcast is I ask, everybody's heard your story.
Yeah.
It's called the I Am Redemption podcast. And so do you have a couple I Am statements that would help the people know who you are better personally?
I would say I am a family man. It's probably the first thing that comes to mind.
That's the episode tag right there. We got it.
And I'm driven. Like
Trevor.
Those are my things.
Dude, that's the one thing when I started reading about you, I immediately was like, he's a hustler. Like to see what you've been able to accomplish and everything like that, man, it's truly remarkable. So it's been a pleasure to sit down with you, and I'm honored, man. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.